Okay, before we start today with our official whatever that we are supposed to start with, right? I just want to emphasize on few things. Um, See, so far whatever that we have done for the last four modules, we have basically tried understanding about the implication or the applications of big data in the module one. We were presented with lot of case studies with respect to module one. Second, the unit which started with NoSQL had lot of details with respect to why a NoSQL database is important in the current scenario. What is its importance today? Third, the module 3 started with the core of MapReduce programming. How are you going to do programming in case of MapReduce? With various aspects of MapReduce programming and other aspects, the module 3 ended with a quote on compression and other techniques. Module 4 was elaboratively about the input format, the output format, the processing way, the style of processing, how it is done in MapReduce 1.0, how it is done in MapReduce 2.0, kind of discussion, right? So these were the topics that we have covered so far. Your course on managing big data extensively covers the aspects of Hadoop and its programming, right? With all these inputs, whatever that you have taken from the regular classes and other things, you should be in a position to do coding with respect to MapReduce programming, provided you have got enough awareness of programming in Java. Second point, which is very important here, is Hadoop has been there for last 1 decade, right? And it has been trying to do a lot of aspects with respect to the applications of big data analytics, right? The main platform for the big data analytics is the Hadoop platform, where you solve certain challenges with data crunching problems. These applications or examples, whatever that we are trying to deal with, gives us a window of opportunity to try out all the data mining algorithms, all the traditional and conventional algorithms that we have studied so far, to put them into a platform where it can solve any quantity of data that is being provided to it. So that is a challenge that we are trying to look at. At an MTech level, you should be able to do coding. You should be able to write codes with confidently about whatever that you have been looking at in the MapReduce programming. Extensive coding is expected at the master degree level, along with a blend of research topic, right? All the research work, whatever that we are trying to do at the MTech level, may end up at the literature level or a proposal level, where we are trying to talk about the problem statement and the identification of problems, right? And today, whenever you are trying to do your mini projects or any other projects with where in which there are lots of challenges involved, why don't you think about platforms like Hadoop? Why don't you think about how you can make use of Hadoop or Spark systems for your for your project work, provided your topic is in the area where it is consuming a lot of data? Think about it smartly and see if you can work out a mini project and use that mini project as an assignment for your Hadoop also. That is also allowed. I am not restricting you to only go to the topics which has been mentioned by me. You can go beyond those topics and try doing an implementation and show how it basically works, right? So that was my initial idea when I spoke to you about the NoSQL implementation, right, with a video on it, right? Few of them struggled a lot, and few of them submitted these assignments on classrooms. Few of them forgot about it, they didn't even submit it, right? Every action, whatever that you put up, will be counted and graded. That is all what I can say at the end of the day, right? Having said that, it is very, very important to have a focus on Hadoop related tools. Hadoop, as you know, comes with innumerous amount of tools, right? All of these tools are meant for certain amount of processing, right? This processing may be for the data processing, it may be for streaming, it may be for administrative management, it may be for database, it may be for script writing, it may be for several other different types of tools that we are trying to talk about. So your last unit, which I'm basically trying to start with, covers a numerous amount of tools. As far as syllabus is concerned, it limits itself to 4 tools, which is basically HBase, Hive, and Pig, and Cassandra. But as far as what I see, this has an extensive scope. That is, the number of tools what we are trying to discuss, which are related to Hadoop, may go beyond even the content of the syllabus. To have extensibility and to have elaborate discussions about these tools, I have included all the tools that are available in Hadoop, right? And this will be our scope of discussion for the 5th module. It is very much essential and very important that you are aware of all kinds of tools which are used in Hadoop and not just a sample set which is being mentioned in the syllabus. Given that we have got enormous amount of time, enough time, it is very important that we build a technical acumen with respect to Hadoop system so that we are perfect with respect to whatever that we are trying to deal with. Second important aspect with respect to the tools what we are trying to talk about, these are supplementary tools. These support the flavor of the MapReduce programming paradigm. These are in a layered approach. Every layer of whatever that we are trying to deal with has one or the other kinds of tools which are supported with it. So that is the advantage of this particular tool that we are trying to talk about. The core of the operating system that we are trying to talk about is still Linux or a Windows-based system. But whatever that we are trying to talk about has layers of processing, right? If you remember the case of a layered architecture, right? The layered architectures, which is very popularly known in even networks. Yeah, you have studied your networks in the last semester. You know that the layered architectures have a contribution. That is, a layer above uses the services of a layer below. Likewise, any sophisticated system that you take can be modeled in a layered kind of an architecture, can be implemented in terms of a layered architecture. The layered architecture eases the complications and separates the concerns of whatever the roles and responsibility each unit of the system is supposed to take. Likewise, as a Hadoop distributed system or a Hadoop entire ecosystem, what we are trying to talk about, has innumerous amount of tools which are available. And these tools, whatever that we are trying to talk about, are in a way very important tools that we have to discuss. Right? The reason is every single tool that we are trying to discuss is related to each other. They are related to all the techniques that we are basically trying to study. So when you talk about any kind of a tool that we are trying to do a processing, you should know that these tools are supportive for your development. Whatever that you are foreseeing to develop in a system like this, right? It is basically helping you to do that. So this particular chapter that we are trying to deal with enormously covers lot of Hadoop related tools, right? And the list keeps going on. You have 1 dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozens of tools which are already available. So you can see that the outline of this particular session, whatever that I have designed, basically concentrates on 4 important tools, which is mentioned by your syllabus. However, the scope of the explaining these tools or covering some more tools are beyond this. right? Unfortunately, what has happened in your case is that the MBD lab has been stripped away in 2016, right? Till 2018, I think it was there, right? We had a lab which was talking about MBD, where you were supposed to do coding and write records for it. It was introduced in 2014, but unfortunately, what happened because of the change in syllabus and other things, these labs were stripped away. If not, you would have a chance of doing all of these things practically and experimenting it. Okay. So when you talk about the tools which are there in Hadoop, are tools which are there in the world of big data, you have four models of data modeling. One is directed acyclic graph model, MapReduce model, graph model, BSP or the collective model. And for different programming requirement, if it is for iteration and learning, if it is for streaming, if it is for querying, you have different tools which are available, right? For example, look at this case of a tool called as Reef. This has a capability to process data which is in any format. Hadoop basically is restricted only to MapReduce kind of a model. Spark is between DAG and MapReduce. Right? Twister is again another tool which is in MapReduce only. Stratosphere is a tool which covers three different types of data models. Reef is a model which basically covers all kinds of data models. When you talk about supportive tools, you have got Thales, Shark, Hive, and Pyglatin. MRQL. For streaming, you have got Samaza, S4, Sparks streaming, and so on. Moving further ahead, see, this is what I was basically trying to talk about. The entire system of Hadoop is a layered architecture which has a cross-platform capability. It has a cross-cutting capability across multiple protocols, multiple different systems. It has ability to do lot of things. For example, if you scroll this particular slide from bottom to up, right, that is from this place to this place, right, you have an interface which is used for messaging. You have a baseline system. The baseline system is the base system, right? That is the Hadoop system. Then on this particular Hadoop system, you have parallelly horizontal scalable data processing systems, which may be Hadoop, which may be Spark, which may be Twister, which may be Thales, which may be Hama, which may be Storm, which may be S4 Yahoo, which may be Samaza at LinkedIn, Giraffe of Pregel, then Pegasus on Hadoop. These are all parallel systems which are used, which are complementary to whatever that we use in case of Hadoop-based systems. Very important to know. These are all complementary tools. Now, when you talk about another higher level of data processing, you have Hive, HCatalog, Pig, Shark, MRQL, Impala, then Swazzle. These are all the tools which are used for data processing. Some of them are procedural oriented, some of them are SQL based, some of them are log file based, some of them are NoSQL based. So these are some of the data processing tools which you have got. Similarly, when you go a layer above it, you have libraries which are related for data analytics. Very, very important tools. For example, you've got Mahout, MLib, MLlib, then you've got Statistica, R, Bioconductor, ImageJ, CalePack, and so many such kind of tools which are available. A layer above it is a workflow management and the orchestration management systems, which consists of ODE, that is Orchestration Development Environment, Airavata, then Oozie, OODT, several such kind of complementary and counterpart tools which are available. On the other side, you can also see message protocols like Thrift, Zookeeper. Then you have got security and privacy. Monitoring tools under that we have got Ambari, Ganglia, right? Then you have got Inca. So you have got so many such kind of tools which are available. I would like to pause here for a moment so that you have an effective view of the layered architecture, that is the upper part of the Hadoop system. The reason why it is called as upper part of the Hadoop system is called as these are add-ons which sit on these systems. So you must know that there are batch processing systems, there are stream processing systems, there are graph processing systems, right? The layered architecture with the lower part of the architecture has systems which are related to, or the tools which are related to lower memory management, right? A lower management with respect to SQL, NoSQL, right? Column based as well as document based systems, key value based systems, right? Here is a view wherein which you can see the different types of databases of SQL type and non-SQL type. For example, if you see Yuma, Tika, MySQL, Phoenix, these are all extraction tools which are related to SQL. Under NoSQL, you've got 4 different types of NoSQL, as you have already known. You have got column family based, document based, key value pair based, and you've got graph based NoSQL systems, right? So when you talk about column based, you have got HBase, Accumulo, Cassandra, Solendra. These are all some of the column based systems. Then you have got MongoDB, CouchDB, Lucene. These are all document based systems. Then you've got Berkeley DB, Azure Table, Dynamo, Amazon, React Dynamo, Voldemort Dynamo. These are all key value pair based systems. You've got Neo4j and Yark Data, which are for graph based systems. You have got a triple store systems, which are a combination of graph, document, and key value. Under that, you've got Jena, Sesame, Allegro Graph, RYA, RDF graphs, and so on. You also have a data transport where you can see SSH, FTP, HTTP, Grid FTP, BitTorrent, these kind of tools being available. You also see cluster resource management and HPC resource management systems, file system based managements, user level managements, and so on, right? So these are all lower layers of the Hadoop system, right, which are used for certain processing. And all of these are Hadoop flavored tools, right? You have so many such kind of tools which are available, right? If you see the NoSQL forum today, right, the NoSQL forum has got at least 3 dozens of different types of databases. Every person has created his own kind of a NoSQL kind of a database. So that is the trend which is seen here. So we will start with HBase. HBase is a distributed column-oriented data store built on the top of HDFS. This we are already aware of, right? We have seen what HBase is. It's a category of a NoSQL database, which is column-oriented database. Very famous usage of HBase is in Facebook. Similarly, you can see HBase is an Apache open source project which is used for providing solutions to storage solutions to Hadoop distributed computing. Data are logically organized into tables, rows, and columns. You can see that the Hadoop part of the ecosystem has something like this. You see HDFS to be the core layer at the background. A layer above it is the MapReduce layer, which consists of a HBase, ColumnDB, and the MapReduce. You have Pig and other tools which sits above it. Right? This is a small and a summarized view of the layered architecture of Hadoop system. In other words, which was shown as an elaborate layered architecture, has been put into a small layered architecture and shown here. So HBase is built on the top of HDFS. HBase files are internally stored in HDFS. Now, when you compare HBase and HDFS, it is as good as a comparison of a flat file based data storage versus a database approach of storing the data. Right? Both are distributed systems. They can scale to hundreds and thousands of nodes. Right? HDFS is good for batch processing, can scan over big files, not good for record lookup, not good for incremental addition of small batches, not good for updates. Right? Because the HDFS is meant for reading many times, writing only once. Right? So this kind of job, whatever that we are trying to look at, is something which the HDFS cannot do. When you talk about HBase, HBase can effectively address the points that it has a fast record lookup, it has support for record level insertions, it has support for updates. HBase updates are done by creating new versions of the values. So if you compare the pattern with respect to HBase and HDFS in a tabular manner, you may see that the write pattern is only append in case of HDFS, but in HBase it is random write, bulk, incremental writes. Read pattern is full table scan, partition table scan. In case of HBase, it is random read, small range scans, or table scan. Hive SQL performance is very good in case of HDFS. However, in case of HBase, it is 4 to 5x slower. The reason is because HBase is not an SQL type system. It is a non-SQL type system. A structured storage is do it yourself, and Avro is used for this. Here in HBase, it is a sparse column family based data model. The maximum size of data that the HDFS can process is 30 plus petabytes. HBase can approximately manage 1 petabyte of data. If an application neither reads nor writes, then we can basically stick on to HDFS. Now, when you compare a HBase with an RDBMS, it is as good as you are trying to compare an SQL-based system with a non-SQL-based system. So, an RDBMS is a row-oriented system. A HBase is a column family-oriented system. Transactions are multi-row ACID properties. Here it is a single row only. Query language is SQL. Here you can use get, put, and scan. Security, authentication, and authorizations are used. There are logins which are used in MySQL or any SQL-based systems. Here in HBase, not so worth because the security is still in progress. Indexes, you have got arbitrary column-based indexes, row key only. Max data size that RDBMS can basically handle is in terabytes. This can handle exactly 1 petabyte of data. So you can see that read and write outputs are 1,000 queries per second. Here it is millions of queries per second. So when do you need to use HBase? You will use HBase when you have random writes, random reads, right? And then you need to do many thousands of operations per second on a multiple TB of data. Access patterns are very well known and simple. These are the conditions under which you are basically using HBase based systems. It is as good as a criteria of understanding when do you use MySQL based system, when do you use file based systems. So the answer again lies with what is the application need? Does your application need a synchronous multiple writes or multi-user based writes? If that is the case, then you basically make use of a DBMS based system. If not, you basically go for a flat file based system if there are no much of a writes and it is only restricted to the number of reads. See, very important to understand that the choice of the database, whatever that they make, is basically based on the number of, it is basically based on the application needs. What does your application basically need? For example, if you take a Facebook kind of an application, the Facebook kind of an application needs thousands of reads and writes, and it needs a large amount of storage. It needs large amount of data to be retrieved at every step. Now, if such kind of cases come into picture, then the obvious choice for you to go with is the NoSQL based system rather than an SQL based systems. And also looking at the kind of processing that you are trying to do with Facebook kind of a system, you are trying to do millions of analysis of social network. So when you are trying to retrieve data at such a large rate and such a large data set, it's very important that you go with a system which can support large storage, large random reads and writes, and the way of retrieving it should be very fast. So such kind of system basically demand you to go with a HBase kind of a model. So when you come and look into the closer aspects of the data model, of how it looks like and what is the way in which the data is stored, it's a typical column family based system. That is, the key values are stored are visualized in terms of a column family. The key is the column, the value is supported with respect to that particular column, right? And looking at the originality of where the HBase data model basically came from, it is from the Google's Bigtable. Google Bigtable was the responsible model, Bigtable model, for doing this HBase data model, right? So when you see a typical data model flow, you can see that you have column family, you can see that there are timestamps, you can also see that there are value associated with respect to that. You have row keys and you have family keys, which are used for storing the data. Now, if you see the logical view of the data that is going to be stored, right? And if you try comparing that with the normal terminologies of an RDBMS terms, you can see that there is a row key. Now, this particular row key is something similar to the primary key of what you have studied in RDBMS systems. You also have data which is in bytes in HBase, where the data is stored in a row, right? There are families of different families of data that you are trying to store. For example, if cutting is a family, the information with respect to cutting and the roles of cutting, right, will be two different families under that, and you whatever is the parameters or identical properties that best defines the info as well as roles becomes the data set of that particular system, right? For example, info may have height of that particular person, state, from which state he comes from, which country he comes from, what is his role, is he a director, what is he designated as, and things like that, right? And then you can have multiple families of data in that particular data column of it. So, person table, which we have seen in case of RDBMS, which had several different columns under it, if it is being viewed in terms of a key and a column value family, the way in which it looks like is something like this. The row key will be the person ID, that particular attribute that uniquely distinguishes the person. It may be SSN. In a case of a student, it is a USN. It may be any kind of registration number which is unique. The data which is associated with this row key will be the families of personal data, demographic data, then it is wellness data, and all the other data which can be related to that. And it may have every row data, whatever that we are trying to talk about, family data that we are trying to talk about, may have different attributes and supporting values to it. So this is how it can be visualized when you convert a person table which is there in RDBMS into a system which is in a H-based kind of a aspect. So each record is divided into column families. Then each column family consists of one or more columns. So this is again another alternative representation of the family system, column family based systems. You also see that there are version numbers which are associated with it. The version numbers are basically added with respect to timestamp. The timestamp itself will serve as a version number for these data content. So when you take a particular data model and try converting the traditional based systems into a column family based systems, there are lots of challenges that you basically come across. One of the very important challenges in an RDBMS system is that you have a multiple key systems. That is, a primary key can be a set of attributes in a particular table. For example, let's take car as a table. The car table can have two unique keys. One is a registration number, and the other one is the engine number or the chassis number, which are basically unique numbers. Which one of it serves as a very unique number is something that you are supposed to take as a row key for this. So the way in which the data models basically work, or the data models basically try changing a column into a different kind of a schema, is something which is very important, of how you convert it. Right? Traditionally speaking, or today when you talk about statistics, right, whatever were the applications that were so far developed from 1995 till 2006 or 7, traditionally still works on the table-based systems, that is, the RDBMS-based systems comfortably. Just because a new technology came into picture, it doesn't mean that you need to convert very well working systems into a NoSQL based systems, thinking about the scalability of data. If the existing systems are not scalable, right, that is, there is no scope that it cannot be scaled any further, only then it comes to you of a case where in which you need to modify the data model and put them in a NoSQL format, right? If a application doesn't generate any kind of data and there is no question of scalability, right? The scalability itself happens in a very static manner. Then there is no point in converting a regular RDBMS system into a NoSQL based family. Likewise, for example, if you talk about an employee database, the employee database is almost static. It does not add every day in terms of hundreds and thousands or something like that, which basically happens in a Facebook kind of a system or a social network kind of a system. So in this particular case, an employee database scales up till hundreds, a few hundreds, maybe 1,000 in a very rare case. It does not increase in a leap and bound as what happens in case of a Facebook model. So such kind of applications do not require the movement of or the conversion of a data model from a traditional RDBMS system to a column family oriented system. It may not be required. So HBase also came up with something called as dynamic columns, right? Very important feature of a NoSQL based database is that they are schema less database. That is, every schema, whatever that you see, or every row, whatever that you see, has different kind of a structure. It does not have same structures. Some may have three families into it, some may have four families into it, some may have eight families into it. So there is no control over the number of families which are associated. As and when there is a need arises, there is a column that can basically be added into the row key. So this format of whatever that we are trying to do is not available in a traditional based systems. Traditional based system are static schema. They don't have improvement over or the elongation about the columns or the model, which becomes dynamic in due course of time. Right. For example, if I create table star dot star with so and so columns and in my this one and start inserting the values into that particular table, over a period of time, I realized that there is a new attribute that is required for my table. Now I cannot go back and modify my table, basically because my table is consisting of hundreds and thousands of rows. Now this is the static problem which is encountered in a RDBMS based systems, which you do not see in case for data models which supports NoSQL kind of a system. So the other important feature of a NoSQL data model is that the table can be very sparse. The entries need not be dense as what expected by a RDBMS system. RDBMS tables expect the tables to be filled, right? They enforce a constraint called as not null constraint, which makes sure that every row is filled up. It is not left as it is. So every row, whatever that we are trying to talk about in case of a data model like column family based data model, need not be mandatorily filled. Right? For example, you can see here there are certain timestamps and certain contents which are left empty. Many of the cells are left empty. So this kind of a provision is not available in case of a RDBMS based systems. It ensures that you enter a default value for that particular column. So the logical model, data model is what you have seen, which sits above the physical data model. The physical data model talks about how it is being stored in a HDFS based environment. How do you basically store data in such environment? So to see that, you may have to understand the way in which the tables are stored. So every column family is stored in a separate files. They are called as H tables. Every key and version numbers are replicated to each and every column families. Empty cells which are there are not stored at all anywhere. So this is a place where you can see that there is some kind of a data saving happening in case of the physical storage of the systems. You can see that you may also see that the version numbers or whatever is the key that is being associated with the column numbers are the names of the files which are going to be stored as H tables in the physical model. So the HBase maintains a multi-level indexing which includes key, column family, column name, and timestamp. An example of this is something like this. You can see that there is a timestamp which is basically included, which includes millisecond level of that particular timestamping. So the column families have different properties and access patterns. For example, configurable by column family are compression, version retention policies, cache priorities. They have disk access one without wasting the IO on the other. So the HBase stores each of these H tables partitioned across horizontally into regions. These region of data, whatever that we are trying to talk about, right, are the counterparts to HDFS blocks. That is, every column family that we are trying to talk about are horizontally ripped apart, and after you have horizontally ripped apart, each partition, whatever that you have created, is stored in one region. Now, this region may be a physical region or it may be a logical region of storage. The architecture of HDFS or HBase looks something like this. You have a HBase master, just like a HDFS master. Then you have a H region server, which basically coordinates activities across multiple region servers. Then you have got HBase client. So this is a three-tiered architectural system, which starting from root, which is the HBase master, the intermittent level, which is the H region server. Then you have got the client, which is HBase. A region, whatever that we see, is a subset of tables row. It has horizontal range of coverage of that particular table. And this is something which is automatically done by HBase. A region servers manages these data regions. Server data reads for writes and writes, uses a log based system to log if any kind of issues come into picture. The master is responsible for coordinating the slaves. For the master, the slave is the region servers. It is basically involved in assigning regions, detecting failures. It has admin functionalities. The big picture of the HBase is looking something like this. You have the H master, which is the overall master of the entire system. It is being controlled or coordinated by a zookeeper with the client. There are H region servers, which basically store the data. Then there are H DFS clients, which basically map this data into different data nodes under the Hadoop based systems. So the thin line which you see in between is the layer of Hadoop, which is the HDFS, and the layer above it is the MapReduce layer. Right? This is the big picture of how it basically looks like. So every technology, whatever that we see in case of Hadoop, are in a layered architecture like this only. So everything, whatever that tools, whatever that we are going to study in the which were listed earlier, basically renders the services at the HDFS level, which is the lowest level of the system. And this HDFS system, whatever that we see, sits on the top of the operating system partitions. Right? This is how it can be better visualized. Right? Every data node has a HDFS, and these HDFS that is there at each data node level are interlinked with each other by their master with certain configuration settings, and with that you see a unified HDFS system across the data nodes. And this HDFS is the base for installing any kind of tools above it. You may be talking about HBase, Pig Latin, or any tools. These needs to be installed after your cluster is installed, after your Hadoop cluster is up and running. Right? This is the basic minimum requirement for a Hadoop-based tool to be installed. Right? You cannot directly install HBase without installing the HDFS system. Right? You need to first install the Hadoop and HDFS, ensure that the HDFS cluster is running very well. Then you can install any tools which are related to Hadoop. Right? All of these tools that we are trying to talk about are independent tools. Once when the HDFS is installed, you may install any tools above it. So that is the way in which the installation and other configuration settings happens with respect to the HBase based systems. Okay, and you should know that Zookeeper and Ambari are two tools which are used for coordinating. Ambari is used for Hadoop administrative management. Zookeeper is basically used for coordinating different elements of HDFS. Right. So whenever you install any Hadoop related tools, it is very important that you check that the Zookeeper is running, because it is one of the items or one of the subsystems which ensures that there is a connectivity between a Hadoop tool and a Hadoop based system. That is, connection between HDFS and HBase is very well ensured with the Zookeeper, and it also ensures that the HDFS clients are um, are appropriately notified as and when there is a changes that happens in the system. Right? It's very tedious process to do the HDFS installation at the first shot, because there are lots of configuration settings that you have to come across with. The second important part of it is that once when you have cleared all the hurdles of the installation and things like that, installing the Hadoop tools is just a 5 minutes job on the Unix terminal. Right? It gets untarred and you can just keep installing as and when you need. Right? For example, if you are trying to work on a data mining kind of an algorithm, my suggestion would be is you install the HDFS first and then install Mahout on it. Right? It works very well. Mahout is a ML library of Hadoop. So these are some of the things which you basically need to understand with a Hadoop based architectural systems, right? And you still have a very good window of opportunity to ensure that you can improve your technical acumen with Hadoop, with lots of programming with Hadoop, right? You can have lot of online systems. See, today, even if you go, I don't know how many of you have registered for AWS Summit, right? And if you have created a free login with your BMS IT username and password, right, it will give you $100 of free access to AWS virtual systems. That is, on a cloud, you can create or spawn any kind of OS instance. You can work with that also, right? And you can switch off the server as and when you need, right? Because Amazon uses a pay-per-use model. You can use and you can switch it off as and when you want. So these are all the privileges that are allowed in case of AWS, and there are plenty of online courses, online systems which are available for you to improve your technical acumen. Very important. So what I will do is I will stop for today here and come back to the remaining set of discussions in tomorrow's class.